Hi Eric, hi Jillian.
Hi.
Super nice to be here with you for this talk about Reconnective Healing. And I'm super curious about that. So maybe you can tell me a bit about what it exactly means.
What Reconnective Healing means?
Yes.
Reconnective Healing means the world. It means life progress. It means human evolution. It means all the basics that we think of when we think of healing. Physical healing, mental healing, emotional healing, spiritual healing. But it really means finding ourselves thrust onto our life path, our life course, and finding that things are suddenly working in a fascinating way. People that work with us, who were throwing out roadblocks, are now supporting us. Relationships with our kids, our parents, our in-laws are all smoothing out. Abundance and prosperity and love and life are showing up. Reconnective healing, I don't think I can put it into a box and say exactly what it means. There are two things I don't know about what reconnective healing is precisely. I can't tell you exactly what it is because it doesn't fit into a box. And secondly, it's ever growing, ever expanding. So I also can't tell you what it isn't.
I will say though that your opening interest in that you're curious is the most beautiful entry point for this work, because it really is the curiosity that the Reconnective Healing frequencies are probably most attracted to. The point of engagement is your attention, not your intentions, not really your thoughts, not necessarily exactly that you know what you're wanting, but these frequencies of energy, light, and information that really are what science is studying around reconnective healing. It's the core elements, the physics of reconnective healing, really have much to do with, again, your curiosity. Where's your attention?
There it will start.
Yeah.
Yeah. And why do you call it reconnective healing and not, why is the re in it?
Great question.
Because I'm a fan of Aretha Franklin. It's called Reconnective Healing for a very interesting reason, which actually is related in part to what we were just discussing. People wanted a name for this, and I said it has no name. Because the moment we give it a name, we put it into a box. We say this is what it is, and outside the box is what it isn't. But people couldn't stand the fact that it had no name.
No label.
So
That's the confusion.
It's our mental attachment to having to have things wrapped in an identity rather than flow. And we tend I think in our human mental process to need an identity in order to feel like we can connect with something. It has to have language. Reconnective healing is one of those beautiful expressions and exchanges that often we don't have words for. But
so I kept it without a name as
Yes.
long as I could.
Ah.
But people in the southeast of the United States started calling it Eric Pearl Healing Technique, and people in the northeast started calling it Pearl High Energy Healing, and people on the west started calling it Eric Pearl this and Eric Pearl that. Everyone thought it needed to attach my name. It needed to say something about frequencies. I could float with it having no name. That made sense to me. But having multiple names became confusing. So I thought we'd create a name. And I tried. I tried to come up with words and patterns and putting the first letter of multiple words together to create new sounds, but nothing quite fit. Oddly enough, approximately 3 or 4 months after Reconnective Healing showed up, still nameless, as I held my hand near my patients, many of them started losing consciousness and started speaking words and messages, which is a part of our second book, which is called Solomon Speaks on Reconnecting Your Life. I held on to these messages for 20 years before we finally published it in a book.
It's like channeling.
You could call it channeling. You could call it speaking in tongues, except speaking in tongues usually means it's another language, and the language was English. And what it is they started connecting with and interacting with this field of information that today's science calls the field, or 0-point field. So it's not a woo-woo thing, it's just they were becoming more consciously aware of the universal field of energy, light, and information. And for many of them, they spoke words. The first of the 6 phrases was, "We are here to tell you to continue doing what you were doing." The second phrase that they spoke, over 50 of my patients who didn't know each other spoke the same words. The second phrase they spoke was, "What you are doing is bringing light and information onto the planet." Third and fourth phrases were, "What you're doing is reconnecting the strings, and what you're doing are reconnecting the strands." And I thought, well, temporarily, that was a downfall. Temporarily, until I come up with the right name, we'll call it Reconnective Healing. And as soon as people started hearing Reconnective Healing, they felt an affinity towards it. There was a connection, there was something relatable, and it even happened that way for me. And the next thing I know, here we are, 20-some years later, and it's still Reconnective Healing.
And I will say, back then, healing may, for many people, have represented something much less comprehensive than it does now.
That's true.
We've really moved, because it's in the name of the work that we teach, we've had to look at the internal confusion around that word healing, because for a long time, healing represented fixing a problem, getting better from something, right?
Regaining the use of an arm or a leg,
Right.
your vision, your hearing, smell, touch, taste, all
Just
things
heal your
that...
cures.
Yeah.
It was about curing and fixing and diagnosing, and reconnective healing was never about that. Yet we would see instantaneous, what you would call phenomena-based transformation. People would have real instantaneous healings in the sense that they would have a physical return to some balance.
And my eyes were attuned to that because I was practicing as a
So
doctor of
chiropractic,
chiropractic. So my patients were coming in with aches and pains and limited movements, and that's what they were telling me about. That's what I was seeing. And when these healings would take place and suddenly they regained the use of their arm again, or they could speak again, or they could walk again, that was the limitation of what I saw. I was like a horse with blinders. I saw what was in front of me, and it was real, and it was in front of me. But it took a while for the blinders to come off, for me to see, wait, let me look at this picture more peripherally. These people are having changes in their relationships, they're having changes in their love life, they're having changes in their careers, they're evolving forward, they're becoming more prosperous and abundant. It's not just about the arm and the leg.
Yeah, it's not just one aspect.
But I called it healing because I expected to see healing, and I saw what I expected to see.
Right. And physical healing, if we think about it, there's really no such thing. Because when there is a transformation of something physical, we feel better about ourselves. And when we feel better about ourselves, we're connecting with our families differently and with our friends differently. So there's a personal transformation. Then when there's a personal transformation, sometimes there's clarity. We're just more aware of things that we weren't paying attention to. So the limitation of healing being perceived as something's broken and I'm going to fix it and then I've been healed. Over the last 10 years, our students have really begun to express the root, and actually, in some ways, the purest part of reconnective healing, which is wholeness. And at its root, that's what healing means. The etymology, the Greek, Latin interpretation is wholeness. Hail, hearty. It's not sickness, repairing a problem. This is something we have sort of taken the word to mean, but it's returned.
Well, we follow an approach of symptoms, treatment, and diagnosis. We can't help that. That's the way we have been trained in the allopathic world, in the medical world, and that is an excellent professional approach for that kind of a profession. The funny thing is that we have brought that as the only thing we've understood, into the healing world instead of expanding the healing approach. So we think, oh, of course there are physical healings. You take an aspirin, your headache goes away. You have an injection into the bursa in your shoulder, you can move your arm again. And we say those are physical healings, but they're not actually healings.
It's not on a deeper level.
Right. They're treatments, they're therapies, and they handle the aches and the pains, but they don't necessarily handle the cause. Reconnective healing looks at the cause physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, on your life path, and therefore it brings you back into balance, and then there's no longer a need for the headache, no longer a need for the limitation, and we express ourselves more fully, more truthfully in what our essence or our essential essence really is, and we live our expression.
Well, what is the secret? How can I learn it?
Well, you just said we look at it, meaning reconnective healing. There actually is an it element to reconnective healing.
We call it the it factor.
That sounds mysterious.
Yeah, because there is a bit of an anomaly to it. So the energy that we've always known, that we're all interacting with, that's always been a part of, I would say, our understanding and physical embodiment, is something we're familiar with. You know, everything is energy. Everything. The plant, the table, you, me. Can
you explain that maybe, Jillian? Because for some people I think it's really strange to try to understand that this table, it's energy, because when I do this, then my hand is hurting a bit.
So when we look, since you've chosen the plant and the table, our perception is that pot of flowers and beautiful bulbs is actually resting on that table. But if we were to look through an electron microscope, the vase and the table would not even be touching.
Nothing in the vase is touching itself.
No.
Nothing in the table is touching itself.
There's a web, a field of what we'll say information that is really the atomic model of what energy is, which is everything is vibrating, if you will, particles and waves and atoms. And
so the table is actually made from vibrations.
Well, it's made from molecules made up of atoms, and those atoms are vibrating. They are attracting and repelling at the same time. That was the basic physics of all matter in gravity.
Think of a visual of an atom. Let's try that.
Yeah.
Okay, because an atom is comprised of subatomic particles. Basically, an electron, a proton, and a neutron. So we've all seen the basic pictures of atoms since the 30s, 40s, 50s, or whenever we first started seeing it.
Karlijn's way too young.
There is, well, I think I missed the 30s and the 40s too, and half of the 50s. So imagine that we've got this electron spinning in one direction and spinning in another, and maybe a third one spinning over here. And there's nothing until you get to the very center. And then there are a couple little dots. And those dots are protons or neutrons. And together the protons and the neutrons form a nucleus. So there's a nucleus or a center. And then there's the electron way out here. So what's between the electron spinning way out here and the nucleus? Space. Empty space.
But it's not really empty.
But we'll get there.
Oh.
Science, quantum physics will tell you that 99.999% of every atom is empty space. But as Jillian said, it's not really empty, because if it were empty, there would be no characteristic, no quality to it. Something is different about your hair than Jillian's hair, which is different about the cloth of the fabric I'm wearing or the material of this sofa that we're sitting on. What changes it is the vibration, the frequency, the resonance, and the information in this field. So if you have a brick, it's still 99.999% empty space, but it's not empty. It's a field of information that holds it together and gives it its qualities of a brick. If you build a brick house, you use a brick and then you use some mortar and then you put a brick on top. The mortar and the brick are not touching each other. There's nothing touching in the mortar, and there's nothing touching in between the mortar and the brick. Everything is 99.999%
So also our
empty
bodies.
space. So also our bodies, also your jewelry, also our fingernails, which feel hard, and our skin that feels soft. We are dancing in a field. So for example, you and Jillian and I have space between us. We're not touching, but our fields of information are touching. Everyone is touching and no one is touching. Everything is touching
Also,
and nothing is
not,
touching.
also, if you are not aware of it.
Well, absolutely. If you are not aware of it, it is still the mechanics of the quantum or the quantum field of information. But you bring up a wonderful part. See, you're truly curious. You are curious by nature. The real question is, what if in our awareness we are able to begin to interact at a more coherent level, a more comprehensive level with that light, energy, and information, or in the case of the Reconnective Healing spectrum, the energy, light, and information that make up this particular bandwidth. And that very much is the core of the work that we teach. Reconnective Healing isn't about your thoughts. You have so many wonderful neuroscience-based healing techniques out there now, and I think that they're well thought through in that they can train your mind to feel better. We really aren't engaging with any aspect of your thoughts. What we are allowing our students or people who learn Reconnective Healing to do is to do exactly what you just said. You become aware of it, and that brings us back to what is it? So the it in Reconnective Healing is very tangible. It has incredibly repetitive characteristics to it that are quite
consistent.
different.
We'll call them consistent characteristics.
Yeah, consistent.
A thread of continuity that shows itself continuously.
Right, and it makes it comprehensible intellectually, cognitively, because you are able, without any hope, without any faith, without any belief in it, to interact with it.
Yeah.
Correct. It has, so let's talk about some of the characteristics of it, because
Yeah.
and then let's play with it.
Yeah,
because
cool.
it's really available and will allow you to have your own awareness experience.
Let's play with it first and then talk about what we experience. Does that work?
Sure.
Shall I share this with Karlijn, or would you like to have her discover a little bit of it on her own first?
Well, I think it's more interesting to let her discover a little bit on her own. So
Okay.
why don't you guide her through
On my
that?
own?
Well,
it isn't.
with a little support.
Here's the misconception. The misconception is that Eric the healer or Jillian the healer are going to heal you or show you healing frequencies. When in actuality, we already embody the awareness.
We includes you,
Yes.
everyone.
So the energy, light, and information of the Reconnective Healing frequencies is the conduit. We're just a catalyst. We're inspiration for it ultimately to engage us. And I do think this is important for the people who are watching this. There is
That would be you.
because there is no technique in Reconnective Healing. There are no steps. There are no procedures, there are no symbols.
No ceremonies or
No ceremonies, no rituals,
invocations.
no invocations, no protections,
Attunements.
no healing toys or objects required.
Wow.
No. And for me, the most sensitive part of this is you don't need to vibrate up to it. You don't have to prepare yourself to receive it. It reaches to you. So if you are very sick, or very well, or very rich, or very poor, or
We're very in the middle.
it isn't engaging with that aspect of you in your quote-unquote identity. It has no interest in your individual identity to be anything different than your essential essence. And whatever that essential essence is, really on a molecular level, it's arriving. So what we want to play with is you will be able to experience watching it arrive, interacting with the cells or the biophotons that you are emitting, which is why we say you're light or we're light.
Light and love.
Yes.
Yeah.
Light
So let's play with it.
yeah.
So here's what I'm going to suggest. Pick your hands up like this. Imagine that you're holding an infant by the rib cage. Good. Feel the weight of that infant. Hold your fingers crisp and firm, tight and strong, so you support the infant. Okay? You can maybe feel the ribs, feel the bone, feel the skin. Great. Now that's the position your hands are in. Now disappear the infant in your mind and imagine a little rubber band attached to your left palm and the center of your right palm. And what I want you to do is slowly, just outward, stretch or pull that rubber band a few centimeters outward. Just stretch it. That's good. Open your fingers a little bit. Now watch your fingers as you stretch the rubber band. Watch your fingers. Stretch the rubber band. Do you see your fingers moving?
Yeah, moving, yes.
Are you moving your fingers or are your fingers moving themselves?
They are moving themselves. Yeah.
Well, that laugh was rather telling because that's not what you expected, is it?
Yeah.
Stay curious though with this. Let's have you use this hand and keeping your eyes on your left hand. Make your fingers really firm and crisp in that left hand. Use this right hand, watching your fingers, and just play, making maybe little small circles, slowly, and just play with whatever it is you're feeling in those fingers. And when you start to see them stretch.
This is one of keep your eyes on your left hand.
Yeah. One of the characteristics of this is distance, which is really different than energy healing techniques. It loves distance.
Yeah?
So keep your fingers real firm and crisp on the left hand.
Yes.
And just explore.
Yeah, I feel a kind of a magnetic field in between my hands. And a soft pressure when I'm doing this. But there's no movement in the fingers right now.
Slow down.
Really?
We're watching it.
Hold your fingers even more still in your left hand. Now watch them. Slide your right hand up a little. Imagine a suctioning or a magnet in your right palm, pulling to your left palm. Do you see that movement?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Now, once you discover it, because this is about your curiosity, wiggle the fingers on this hand to play with that hand.
Now keep your eyes on your left hand. Wiggle the fingers in your right.
There you go. Strands.
There you go.
Strands. You see it?
Yeah.
Allow it to just explore you, because this that we are watching is the Reconnective Healing frequencies arriving. You can laugh. Well, they're interacting.
Yeah.
And in the interaction with the cells of your hand, just stay with this. Really allow yourself to, because this is the awe and wonder. We don't have to do anything here. We receive. So I want you to really receive and allow yourself to witness. You are the witness and the observer right now. You are absolutely interacting with this field, and it is actually harmonizing the biophotons in your cells.
Now we have particularly decided not to be the ones interacting with you in this, but to allow you to discover it for yourself.
But let us, because you just keep your hand right there, let that go down, and let us watch your fingers. Watch as we...
And open your fingers up, and you do your best to hold them still, and you watch them and see that they stay still.
Oh no, that's crazy. I see my thumb. Yeah.
Right, and watch what happens. Actually, Eric, you're further away, so Eric's going to play all the way out here. Watch your hand.
Watch your hand, not mine.
Just
your hand is the response.
beautiful.
Yeah.
What do you see going on with your hand now?
Yeah, a little shaking in my fingers.
What's the sensation feel like to you now?
Like very light electricity.
Uh-huh.
Shocks or sparkles.
So what happened?
Like this, so you're not stressing so much. There we go.
So what happened was that
This
you
played a role.
interacted
It's
with your
too
own
fun.
field. You interacted with your own field. Then Jillian interacted with your field. Then I interacted with your field. And none of us are sitting here touching each other, yet something is touching.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Right.
So we hope you like it, because there's no going back.
How can I practice with reconnective healing on a daily basis? Do you have some advices?
Well, maybe we should talk about how we teach.
We have a very new way of learning reconnective healing that's only been available for the last year because we have spent the last 2 decades only teaching this work in a live environment, live, in person.
Yeah.
And last year we created what we'll call the online essentials of reconnective healing. And we did it in a very particular way. It's not a lecture. It's a series that takes place over linear time of 8 hours. But we've broken it up into small, non-linear 5, 7, 8 minute segments.
For people like me who would never, ever commit to an 8-hour online training program, because I would go absolutely insane.
So
7
smart.
minutes of this and 6 minutes of this, and before you know it, the first hour is over. And you've experienced so much that you go, I need to go into the next part.
And also that it isn't about learning knowledge. This particular program is to give you a doorway where you experience that sort of leap from knowledge to knowingness. We just completed Dutch translation. But I think the gift of the online experience is you could do it anywhere where there's internet. You know, often people will sit on the train on their way coming to and from, and it's really available. That's that. And then we invite you to come to a live immersion. And the live immersion, which we'll be doing here in Amsterdam.
Yeah, I heard you're coming back. Good.
We haven't even left yet, and we're coming back. We are coming back, and I believe
In June.
it's
June
June
22nd.
22nd
Yes.
through the 24th.
Yeah.
We call it the live immersion or the one experience because it gives you the opportunity to take now what you're already in knowingness with. But we bring you together as sort of like-minded vessels connected to one another, and it gives you the tangible, practical way to work with hundreds of people together over the course of these days where you're observing each other. You're noticing what you're noticing as you work as a facilitator and the other person lies down on massage tables, and you're observing the frequencies, albeit both of you receiving. Nobody is sending energy, light, and information.
But are there some spots left? Because you are so popular, maybe it's already sold out.
I can't tell you that. I don't really know if there are spots left yet. I believe that there are some.
But we can
I
put a
believe that
link
there are some.
underneath that people can
Sure.
check if there are tickets available. Thank you so much for this lovely interview. And is there something left that you definitely say to the Dutch viewers?
Dankjewel.
Well, who can say anything better than that?
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you,
It was
Karlijn.
a pleasure.
We were happy to be here.